Yo, what's good, everybody? I hope everyone is blessed. They're having a good month, a good week, even if it was just the weekend or just a good day, if you logged onto the video and today's been a good day for you, take some time to appreciate that, and if it's been a bad day or it hasn't been so great, there's still more time in the day, and hopefully what I want to talk about in this video will help you with that process. If you're new here, my name's Suli. I'm a poet, I'm a writer, and I operate on many different platforms, YouTube being one of them. And on YouTube, I just like to share my thoughts, ideas, and a lot of the time my content, the new creative content I've made. So if you want to stick around for that, make sure you like, subscribe as well, and after you watch the video, leave a comment, because it helps boost it in the algorithm, especially for someone like me who's just trying to re-engage his community and get his channel going. So this month, some of you may be Muslim, Ramadan Mubarak, you may be fasting. I hope that's going well and you're gaining what you need to out of it, like myself. And some of you may have just come out of lockdown. We're in the UK, and they've just lifted some of the restrictions on the lockdown. And I think it's a great opportunity for people to reflect, but also be grateful and appreciate the things and the people that they didn't get to appreciate prior to this year that we had, which was like life-changing for a lot of us. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about moving forward with faith and confidence instead of fear. If I give you the basis of where the message starts, and this is my own personal experience, when something bad happens to a lot of us, when we go through like a traumatic experience or people around us go through it, that impacts us. We may not realize it at the time, but it impacts us in some capacity. And what I found is that when something really bad happens, it's difficult to not get yourself into a state of complete worry or anxiety or consistently in fear about the future. And this came to my mind because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and she, I won't go into much details, but she did say that, things have happened, and as a result of that, she's living in fear. She's doing everything out of the fear of what might happen, as opposed to like the opportunity and the faith. And I realized that up until recently, that was something that shaped my life, So one of the things that happens when we live in fear, instinctively, it's attributed towards living in the future. And boy, I'm the worst. I was the worst at that, everything I did, especially because I'm into art, I'm always trying to build my brand, I'm an entrepreneur. You kind of base your mind on trying to predict the future. And it gets so kind of egotistical that you believe that you could predict the future. If you watch a lot of entrepreneurs, that is kind of like the most cherished skill in entrepreneurship. Look at predicting the future, what's going to be the next big thing. So I kind of cultivated that in my mind. I was like, I need to be able to see the future. As a result of that, I ended up living in the future. Now, what happens when you live in the future and something bad happens is that future automatically translates into fear, because you're always worrying about, when is this next bad thing going to happen? When is this going to fail? When is that going to happen to this person? And what happens now is that you're constantly not only in the future, but you're constantly in a state of fear. So the biggest lesson I learned, and I had to learn this year about that state of being, is that we have to learn to pull back our ego and accept one simple fact: we have no control over the future. Like it may seem difficult for a lot of people who are young and ambitious, and it was difficult for me, but we have to have faith and understand that we have no control whatsoever on the future. The only thing you can control is what is happening right now and what you can do to improve your chances of having that perceived outcome in the future. But what happens is, the future, first of all, when we're in a state of fear, we look at the worst possible outcome. And the reality is that there is no outcome in the future until it actually happens. I was talking to someone else and they was like, I feel like I'm on a train that's leading me like in one direction, a direction that, it doesn't have a good outcome, it might be a destructive direction. And they was like, I feel like I can't stop this journey. And I guess for me, I had to realize that although we may be on a journey, or you may be on that train that seems destructive, the reality is that we have no idea where the destination of that train will be, because we have no control over the future. All we have control over is the present and who we are in that present moment. And what we can do in that moment is change and have positive thoughts about the future. I realized that we can have the negative outcome, but there's also the positive outcome that is just could happen as well. But so why don't we focus on that? And I realized that's because, I didn't realize, I learned that that's because when you are in a state of stress or fear or anxiety, you become reductive. We become a reductive version of ourselves. That's kind of like, that's why the example of when someone comes up to you and they ask for advice about a situation, we're usually able to give them all the correct answers about what to do. Oh, that guy is terrible, you should leave him. Now that girl's not good for you, you should leave them. But then when we end up in our own relationships, we're struggling to figure it out, because once your emotions get involved, it's harder for you to think clearer and to be logical about a situation. So what happens is you're emotionally reacting to it, and a lot of those emotions are sometimes triggered by the imagination, and the imagination is one of the most powerful things we have as humans, because that's how we've created things, this amazing world. God has bestowed us with this enlightenment to science and space travel and all that stuff, but it can also hurt us at times if we don't control it. One of the things I learned in that process was the idea of just being like, you know what, I have all these ideas of what I want to happen in the future, but if I dwell on them and what of them might go wrong or what might happen with them, I rob myself of the time I'm spending right now to improve upon my chances of making them happen, improve on myself. All I can control is my mind. To be honest, we can't even control our body to some extent. When we need to go toilet, it does what it needs to do. When we're hungry, it does what it needs to do. We can decide whether we will get the right nutrients in it, but that's a mental choice. And I realize positive thinking is so hard to do when you're in a negative state. But I think what is easier, what I found for me to do, is acceptance. I found that accepting that this is what I can control and being content with that really helped me to deal with situations moving forward. And there's a Christian prayer, the serenity prayer, which I think is so beautiful. And I think, how does it say? It says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. Maybe I'm paraphrasing, but it's something along those lines. And that's such a powerful way to look at it, because once you alleviate all that idea of all of these things might happen, you then give yourself an opportunity to focus on the things that might not also happen. And then you realize that, there's a broad spectrum of things happening right now, and let me focus on the ones that I have power over, and that's my mind in this moment. Sometimes when we have a negative outcome on a situation, we don't necessarily give ourselves an opportunity to see that the positive outcome could just be as likely. So it may be like, this person, I'm going to fail this test, and once I fail this test, I might end up in this place I don't want to be, and then I can't do this, I can't do that. So many scenarios can happen for that. You could pass that test, which is just as likely, but you could fail that test and you could end up in a better position that you ever envisioned you are, because maybe where you wanted to go, you realize 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line, that's not where I wanted to be. And I feel like there is positive opportunities to look at within the negative, but we rob that away when we're in fear instead of moving forward with the faith, and when I say faith, it's not, I didn't mean it in a spiritual context. I really read it in the context of like life, because life is a process of faith. Every step you take, every piece of love you give to someone else, in the faith that that not necessarily will be reciprocated, but it's in the faith that they deserve that, or you can give it to them, or you can take this step and progress in this journey. It's hard to do when you're stressed out. What have I found helps? So what I found helps for me, especially during the lockdown, was going and walking. You don't necessarily have to go for long walks, but when you're walking, it's being mindful within those walks. One of the most powerful things I realized was the human brain, we have the capacity to orientate. So what happens is that if you go the same place every single day, like your journey to work, what happens is your mind cognitively maps that place, and then you're not looking at the journey anymore. That's why you don't need to worry about getting lost, and you can be on your phone because your mind's just going through that process. What I found is, if I step outside, you can listen to music if you want, I don't. And first of all, I take a deep breath and I smell the environment around me, and then I take the opportunity to kind of like, sometimes some people say you should touch stuff, feel the feeling of like, the wood or your clothes, but really give yourself an opportunity to be in the moment. I found walking with that consciousness means that I start to look at the things I didn't look at before. And it's crazy because it's disorientating at first, because I started to get dizzy because I was so overwhelmed by all the things that I was missing before. You start to see the chimneys, you start to see, little things in the distance, that little sign there. You see someone in the window at the corner. But what happens is, once you're within the moment, you can say to yourself, listen, like, this is where I am right now. I accept where I am right now. I can't control the rest, but what can I do in this moment right now? And sometimes in that moment, all you can do is take deep breaths and be grateful for life. And regardless of what situation you're in, I think being grateful for life, or maybe just opportunity, or family, or just something is empowering. Gratitude, I feel like there's some power in gratitude. I haven't mastered it myself, but I really realized that if I can wake up in the morning and take a deep breath and be like, what, maybe the sun's not out, but I'm able to think of all these new ideas. I can go and sit on my laptop and write some stuff or learn something new. That takes away the boredom, or sometimes the fear of like, what is going to happen next. That's my message, guys. I'm not sure how clear that was, and maybe there was a bit of repetition in that, but hopefully I imparted something on you that you can take to your day today. Like I said, if it hasn't been that great, and you can make a difference to your day, maybe make a difference to your week, make a difference to your month. But I think overall we need to remember that we have no control over what happens. So in this moment, what are we going to do that we know we have control over and will change our outlook of the future? Yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'd love to know your thoughts.